So in this series, I'm going to be talking about how to get your first tank and how to set it up and how to cycle it and what gear you need. And this is going to be a fresh build. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to go take media from one of my previously established tanks and seed this new tank with it. I'm going to start with dry rock just like most of you guys are going to do. So where do we get our first tank set up from? I suggest that you go search on Marketplace and you find a tank that's in between 40 to 60 gallons. That's a good starting range where you're not going to be spending a lot of money on a new setup, but you do have the advantage of having a larger water volume. And so that's exactly what I did. I found a 40-gallon breeder on Marketplace. He wanted $150. It came with a stand, it came with a sump. I ended up getting everything for $120, which that's a deal that you can't beat. You can't find that anywhere else. The other thing that I suggest that you buy from Marketplace is dry rock. And the reason for that is because it's just significantly cheaper than going to your LFS or trying to buy it online. Most of the time when you're trying to buy dry rock from a store, you're going to be spending between $3 to $5 per pound. So how much dry rock do we want to get? A good rule of thumb is to get 1 pound of rock for every 1 gallon of tank volume. And so if you just do the math on that, I'm going to put 40 pounds of dry rock into my 40-gallon aquarium. And that's going to come out to about $120. That's the same price that I bought a stand and a tank and a sump. So I suggest that you buy your dry rock on Marketplace. It's really hard to get rid of a lot of aquarium stuff, and dry rock is one of the things that nobody wants to buy. You're going to find listings on there all day long for $1 a pound. So you do need to do this with caution. You don't want to buy an aquarium that was used as a quarantine tank, and you don't want to buy dry rock that was used in a quarantine tank or has ever been treated with copper or any other medications. So this used rock that you just bought is probably going to be dirty, and it's probably going to be full of leaves, or it's going to be full of algae or stuff that you don't necessarily want to put into your aquarium. So what I recommend is that you cure this rock. And how we're going to do that is we're just going to use standard household bleach. We're going to put the rocks inside of a 5-gallon bucket or inside of a trash can. We're going to submerge that rock in water, and then we're going to add about a gallon of bleach per 10 gallons of water. So in my case, I have 2 5-gallon buckets. So I put about half a gallon of bleach in each 5-gallon bucket. So a safety note here is do not add your bleach to this first. Add water to this. And the reasoning behind that is you don't want to have high strength bleach splash back at you when you go to add water to that solution. So just make sure that you add the water into the buckets first, and then you add the bleach on top of that. Make sure your rocks are completely submerged in your bleach water solution, and then you're going to want to make sure that nobody can get into this. You don't want to have your kids or animals or anything like that get into this solution. So you're going to want to put a lid on it, or you're going to want to put it somewhere where you know that it's going to be safe. Another thing that you're going to need is sand. So I just recommend that you buy some live sand because we're going to be using dry rock with this that doesn't have any beneficial bacteria. And you can find live sand at your LFS, or you can find live sand at Petco's. I'm just going to order it off Amazon because it's more convenient. You should consider what grade of sand that you're purchasing. Some sands are more fine and some sands are more coarse. Fine sands are more aesthetically pleasing to a lot of people, where coarse sands are just easier to do maintenance on. So you're going to have to make this decision for yourself. Another thing that you're going to need to decide is what brand of salt you're going to use. Now, I would pick a salt that mixes up between 8 and 9 DKH. I typically use either Fritz Aquatic salt, or I've also used the Red Sea Blue Bucket. I'm going to be running a sump on this system, and I recommend that you do the same thing. Not only does this unlock the ability to run a refugium, but you can also store some of your equipment, like your heater, inside of the sump. This offers a cleaner look for your display tank. The only real problem with running a sump is that you're going to have to get your water from your display tank down to the sump, and then you're going to have to bring that water back up to your display tank. So you're going to need to drill your aquarium. And this is a lot easier than what it seems. One of the things that you do need to keep in mind is you can't drill tempered glass. What you're going to need is a diamond bit, which you can find those at your local hardware store. You can buy them on Amazon. BRS also sells these. Unfortunately for this video, my tank's already been drilled, so there's nothing really for me to do there. I would recommend that you just go watch some videos. There's plenty of examples of people drilling tanks. BRS has done videos. The King of DIY has done videos. It's really not a hard process. I would not be scared of it. You're also going to need a return pump. And this is the pump that I'm going to go with. This is a DC pump. It's controllable. You can set the speed to whatever speed you want it to be within, its maximum capabilities. And you typically want a turnover rate between 3 to 5 times your display volume. So in my case, I have a 40-gallon tank. So that means that I'm going to want between 120 to 200 gallons per hour. So you can see that this is an 800 gallon per hour pump. And you might be thinking, well, that's a lot more than what you just said. And it is. And the main reason why is because I plan on using a manifold system. This not only makes your sump look cleaner, but it can also save you money because you're not going to be buying additional pumps to run a UV sterilizer or to run a calcium reactor or to run a carbon reactor. You can do all of that with just this one return pump. Another piece of equipment that you're going to want to get is a heater. I've used Jaeger heaters in the past, and so that's what I'm going to go with again. You're also going to want to get a controller. And what the controller is going to do is if your heater ever gets stuck on, in theory, the controller should shut your heater off so that it doesn't overheat your aquarium. We're also going to need a skimmer. And again, what I recommend you do is buy a secondhand skimmer. Get on Marketplace. You can find them for anywhere between $50 to $100 in most cases. So that's where I would start looking. The main purpose of a skimmer is to pull waste out of the water. It also has a secondary benefit of aerating the water very well. You should also get a power strip. You'll quickly realize that there's too many things to plug into a single outlet. I like to get these ones that have a timer built into them because it becomes very useful for things like your refugium light, or let's say you want to run a GFO reactor for a certain period of time, something like that. So you do need a light for your aquarium. This is something that I'm not going to worry about purchasing right now, and I would recommend that you don't worry about it either, because there's no need to start baking your aquarium with a bunch of lights, especially while it's cycling and while it's getting established, because all you're going to really do is grow algae, and it's going to make the tank look horrible. I understand you want to turn the lights on, you want to look at your tank, you want to look at your rock work, you want to look at your fish. I strongly advise you not put light on this aquarium for the first 3 to 6 months. And this is a prime example of why you don't want to turn on the lights too soon. You're going to buy this tank and you're going to want to show this off to your friends and your family, and then it's going to look like this, and you're not going to want anybody to look at this thing. Unfortunately, this is a very slow process when it comes to cycling a tank and getting it ready to grow coral. There's really nothing you can do to speed up this process. You just have to wait it out. I recommend that you wait about 6 months before you start thinking about putting coral inside this tank. But don't think that we're just going to sit around and do nothing. While this tank is cycling, this is the best opportunity that we have to start quarantining fish and getting them ready to go inside of your display tank. So what I recommend while you're looking on Marketplace, also be looking for a quarantine tank. And this can be considerably smaller than your display tank. You can get a 20-gallon tank, and that should be sufficient to quarantine fish in. And I strongly recommend that you do quarantine your fish. There's a lot of marine parasites out there, and there's some that are so bad that once they infect your fish is only going to live for the next 48 to 72 hours. And since we're talking about a reef tank, you can't use medications inside your display tank. You're going to end up putting snails and other inverts inside of this tank, and they can't handle some of these medications. So here's the total for everything that I talked about in the video. Came out to about $530. Now, this isn't including the light. Like I said, I'm not going to worry about purchasing a light right at the moment. And this kind of gives us time to save up to be able to purchase that. Now, I didn't really talk about how to cycle a tank, but that's something that I plan on doing later on. I don't even have the tank set up right now. There was some shots of it with the PVC pipe inside the tank. So that's what it is looking like at the moment. I have to get some of this stuff myself. So once I get that, I'll make a video on quarantining fish and how to cycle a tank properly and what we would need to do that. And so I just mainly really wanted to do this just to show you guys how much this actually costs to do. And then also try to give you guys some guidance on how to set up a tank properly and how you should cycle it and how long you should actually wait to be, putting coral into this tank. And so when I first started doing this, I ended up spending way too much money. I think I thought I was going to spend like $1,500 or something like that. I'm pretty sure I spent near $3,000 just in my first tank setup, and it was a 65-gallon tank. And that was purely just because I didn't know what I was doing, and I bought things twice in a lot of cases. And I also wasted money on livestock because I was just so impatient that I was buying stuff to put in the tank just to watch that stuff die within a month. And I wanted to give you guys some advice to try to help you avoid that. You'll see some of these videos online where it seems like somebody sets up a tank in one day and then they're already putting coral in it. And I kind of think that's the wrong thing to teach people. But anyways, like I said, I have to wait for some of this stuff to come in, and I'm gonna get the tank set up on my end, and I'll make another video about how to cycle a tank and how to do quarantine processes and stuff like that. So keep an eye out for that. If you want to support what I'm doing, I sell frags at onlyfrags.com. You can go check that stuff out. I would really appreciate if you guys just took the time to go look at that. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys next time.